What's good, people? Welcome to this video. This is gonna be about how I made my pocket foil board. First of all, a short disclaimer, I'm not a professional in this. This is my first time working with fiberglass, resin and hardener. So there might be some other guys who can give you a better overview of how to work with it. But still, as this was my first experience with it, I think you can quite perfectly learn from the mistakes I made along the way. Also, this is not gonna be an exact how-to video on step by step, but I'll show you the steps I had, how it worked out for me, and it worked out quite fine. So yeah, to start with, I used Paulownia Woodplank, ordered some foot pads from Amazon, and all the fiberglass, resin, hardener stuff from Bakuplast. I'll put the links to each of those things down in the description. I wanted to look like some kind of a freedom foil board, techno and small, and as a pocket foil pump board, if that makes any sense to you. So I made it quite round, and I really ended up liking the design which I cut out of the Paulownia Woodplank. In the beginning it looked a bit harsh, but then I sanded it down more and more and more until I got the design which I really liked. I didn't want it to look like a normal pump foiling wood plank board, so I decided to put some graphics on it. First of all, I made some samples which paint is gonna hold up, and turned out that acrylic paint was holding up against the resin and the hardener. Surprisingly, spray paint didn't, which I wanted to go for first, but acrylic paint made quite a good job. So I went for some flowers on the downside and a shark, like kind of Babe inspired, and on the top side just some, whales, stringers, I don't know how to call them. But I really liked how the design came out. So at one point I was kind of afraid to glass it up, because I thought I could end up destroying the design if the glass isn't good. But it turned out to be quite okay. Then, first of all, for the construction. I used 4 layers of fiberglass, the first 2 layers on a 45-degree angle, and the second 2 layers straight, so 4 layers on top and 4 layers on the bottom. And to make it a bit more stiff, I used for the top side 1 long stringer to give it like some extra stability in the long way, and on the downside I used another small layer just to give the foil mount a bit more stability. So overall it's 4 huge layers and 2 small layers. The first 2 ones to prevent the rotary stiffness, or rotary, I don't know how to call it. And the last ones, on the long way of the board. And then for working the resin in, first of all I covered the whole ground, which made it quite much easier actually. I pre-cutted the fiberglass, as you already saw, which made it pretty cool, pretty more easy, as I then could just take each layer of fiberglass solidly and didn't have to cut it all out. So I mixed the resin, put like always a layer of fiberglass, and then the resin on top, another layer of fiberglass, the resin on top, and so on and so on and so on. Here in this time lapse you can already see my first problem was not using enough resin and hardener. So that's one of the big things: use more than you think you'll need. Maybe mix, I don't know, 200 milliliters or something and use them up. It's really important to get the fiberglass completely around the edge. On this graphic I try to show the blue side is the downside. Really get it around the edge, because if you get the purple one, like the top side around the edge as well, you will create really much stiffness as the glass overlaps. And to achieve that you have to get the fiberglass completely wet. If you don't use enough resin and hardener you will fuck it up, as I did in the first place. But hey, I hope you can learn from that mistake. As you can see, there's a last layer which I'm putting on, which has like those red stripes in it. That's called rip-off paper. It ensures that you get a clean finish at the end. I thought I could just put it on and work it in. It's way better to get it in with real tension. Don't let any air bubbles in. I had that on the bottom side, and you can see the air bubbles in the end. So yeah, don't do that. Then when it dried out, there was quite some extra fiberglass around the edges, which I had to cut off. I used a cutter for it and then just sanded it down. In the beginning it looks a bit screwed up if you sand it, because you can't see through it anymore. But if you put another layer of resin and hardener on top, work it in a little bit, you can see through it again. So that wasn't that much of a problem. Also with the rip-off paper, I was quite scared that I would destroy the finish, because it looks really milky the moment you take the rip-off paper off. But it's dust-free, and if you put another layer, really small layer of resin and hardener on top, you can see through it again completely, and you'll have a pretty nice finish. So I would suggest you to really use this rip-off paper. Yeah, then I did the bottom side first, top one afterwards. Same procedure, again the 5 layers or 4 layers, depends on if you want to count this little small extra stringer forward. I had to again cut off the extra fiberglass on the edges, sand it down and put another layer on top. Due to the fact that I didn't manage to completely overlap it at all the places on the edges, I had to put one more extra layer, like a small tiny one on top, just to ensure there's no water getting in the board. If you nail it in the first place, you won't have to do that. So yeah, that's another thing you could learn from. So the next thing was the positioning of the foil on the board. I didn't think about it too much, to be honest. I just knew I want the foil a bit more on the front of the board, because I prefer it on my kite foil as well. So I can take the back foot further backwards to get like a bit more aggressive back foot pressure for making small turns and edging. So I ended up with the foil quite far in the front. I was quite scared to drill the holes, but in the end, as you can see on this graphic, I ended up just taking a 1 cm drill and drilling through it. Then on the graphic number 2, the purple stuff down there, the purple line should be tape. So I taped it up, filled it up with resonant hardener. I used a bit harder resonant hardener, which I wouldn't suggest you just use the normal one. It's gonna be quite fine. Just be careful to don't get any air bubbles inside there, as it really needs to be solid. And then on the third piece of the graphic, I drilled through the hardened out resoner again with a 6 mm or 6.5, I'm not quite sure. So the M6 screw would fit through to in the end fix the foil on the board. This was quite difficult for me because I didn't manage to get it on a 90-degree angle, so some of the holes were not completely covered with resin on the sides, which is really important, because if you don't manage to do that, there's gonna be some water getting in the wood. So yeah, make sure to get it on a 90 degrees angle, or other option would be use a bigger hole in the first place so you have a bit more room to fuck it up. Anyways, for the holes I put the foil on top, marked them, and always double checked if it's in the right position, because I really wanted it to be straight in one direction and not some kind of off axis at the end. That would have really fucked me up. So I had to better up the holes in the end, because I didn't manage to drill through it in a 90 degrees angle, but I guess you can learn from that mistake and just use the standing drill, something to ensure you this 90 degree angle. So the last thing was mounting the pads on top, and the board was pretty much finished. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I guess you can see in the videos I really like it. I don't know if you like the design or the shape and all that stuff, but I think it turned out really, really beautiful. Also, I kind of like the idea how hilarious it looks that the board is shorter than the foil is wide. So it's 94 centimeters long, and the foil wingspan of my Gong XXL Wise is 100 centimeters. So that looks pretty funny, and I'm really stoked on how it turned out. On my first tries I didn't completely trust it to hold, so I put some small cables on the foil and on the board and connected them to make sure that if it breaks I'll not lose my foil, even though it floats but it worked out perfectly, so I didn't use them for too long, but it took me like 15 tries to get going. It's really different from the board I'm used to, which is the Gong Catch in 4.6. But I really like the pocket foil as it's way more carvy and likes to pitch way more, which I guess is due to lower swing weight, which also makes pumping more effortless. Like you don't need to put in that much energy for each pump. Still takes some time to get used to it. I had 4 sessions on it until now, and it holds up perfectly. Yeah, it takes some time to get used to it, but once you're used to it, it's quite some fun, as it's more pitchy, more agile, and yeah, just looks pretty cool. So, in summary, if I could give you some tips, these would be: first of all, buy more than you need, because you will need more than you think you need. Second one would be use enough resin and hardener. This was pretty hard for me because I tried to use less than I really needed, which ended up with me not really getting the fiberglass around the edges, which is pretty important. So use more than you need. Really let the whole fiberglass get completely dripping wet. If it's too much, you will still be able to work it out with a credit card, which is completely fine. Just use a credit card. I tried it with a brush in the beginning. Didn't make it that much easier. So yeah. Tip number 3 would be basically preparation is key. Know what you're doing, make like a small list, prepare your steps, and that's gonna make it way easier. And the last tip would be just do it. It's quite easy once you get a hand of it. And yeah, I really like the process. I had quite some fun building it, designing it, painting it, all that kind of stuff. And now I'm really stoked that I have one for myself, as it really makes a difference for pumping. And yeah, I hope you can learn from my mistakes, and I hope I could inspire you to build your own pocket foil board.